Welcome to Dreams and Machines. I'm April Hill, the community manager here at Modifius. We are proud to welcome you to the world of Dreams and Machines, our newest RPG setting using 2D20. Join us while we tell you more about Evera Prime and the unique characters within this world.
Yeah, Dreams and Machines is set in a really interesting world that's years after an apocalypse that we don't exactly know a lot about. We've got the shells of huge mech-type machinery that are unworking, and we've got a populace living in shelled-out cities, the pieces of broken spaceships, and also small villages and farmland trying to eke out an existence after this great war. And it's really interesting because it's this mashup of post-apocalyptic survival with some fantasy type tropes where you have to travel from place to place and find a way to eat. Find a way to survive against creatures that you've never seen before. And also some really cool post-apocalyptic stuff, but it's not right after the apocalypse. We're looking at years after the apocalypse had happened and what the people do to survive. One of the really cool things about this project is that when I came in, Chris Birch had already had a whole lot of the history done. We knew what had happened, what had come before, what had gotten us here. And our job was to create modern day. Based on everything we know, how do people live? What do they eat? How do they pay for things? What do they wear? And it was an interesting way to do it because normally as a creator, I'm looking at how things currently are and then creating a backstory that gets you there. This was a little bit of the opposite, which was a really interesting puzzle. Based on where we started, what would this society look like? And so we got to do a lot of the very basic world building on, let's create a town. Because once you create a town and you put some people in it, we can start asking the questions. What do the buildings look like? Why do they look like that? And begin to populate it and fill in all of those gaps. So for me, that was one of the most interesting things about this project was getting to do the world building in a new way. And I think it's going to feel very cohesive, that once you start to learn about the history that most people living on Evera Prime don't know, it should fit with where the world currently is in a way that I think is really special.
Dreams and Machines is a feel-good, post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure story. It's set on a world that's been cut off from Earth. It's had to bomb its own world into the Dark Ages to destroy this malevolent AI that was trying to kill everyone. The people are coming together after several hundred years. They're rebuilding their world. They are having to contend with raiders, with these ancient machines returning to life, which implies that possibly the AI is returning, and much more. It's a world that's full of mystery, of spectacularly advanced science, just lying around on the ground and in these smashed ancient cities, of bioengineered creatures, of strange mysteries. And the rule set, the 2D20 system has been redesigned to very much encourage players to work together, and there's a sense of, when you go down, you get growth, you get experience from getting up again, from helping each other get up again on their feet. So it's a game that celebrates the act of kind of working together to defeat these threats. My inspiration for Dreams and Machines possibly starts as a young kid. I'd go and work on my grandfather's bookstall in Coventry Indoor Market, and I would come home with shopping bags full of space opera, sci-fi books from the 70s and 80s. And so I grew up on a diet of everything from Isaac Asimov to all the weirdest, wonderful books like Thongor Against the Gods. So I love this sort of whole, barbarian stumbling through the ruins of the future concept. And then I obviously learned D&D when I was about 8, 9, and then one day my brother Al said, let's play again. And I thought we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I had to create a native with a spear, and it was a bit rubbish because normally you get some armor as a D&D player. And then I discovered this metal wall that went up to the sky, and I had to make some strange rolls when I picked up a thing that was clearly a laser pistol. But anyway, it turns out I was playing this original game called Metamorphosis Alpha that was by Jim Ward, and it was TSR's, the company that made Dungeons and Dragons, sort of second role-playing game. It was the precursor to a game called Gamma World that was this sort of gonzo post-apocalyptic sci-fi setting. And Metamorphosis Alpha, the premise was you were people on a giant mothership that had gone through a radiation cloud, and you were the survivors. So it was great fun, and that I think kind of had such an impact on my mind as a 8, 9-year-old that I loved post-apocalyptic sort of adventures, sci-fi films, TV, whatever, and I've loved that ever since, and always wanted to create my own version of that. And I found that recently a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff has got this very grim, dark, depressive nature to it. How bad can humans be to each other? And the world's a bad enough place, and I've always had this sort of like feel-good approach to sci-fi, I guess, having grown up with all that sort of hopeful, optimistic sci-fi from the 70s as a kid. So with that as a background, Dreams and Machines kind of really came together in my head as this story of a girl and a robot, and exploring the world together and finding out about all these mysteries and all the danger, of course, because you've got to have danger to have a great story. But it my glass is always half full. I want there to be optimism and hope, even against the most ridiculous odds, even against the most terrifying, monstrous machines from the past. There has to be a glimmer of hope that if we can just get that electro spear in the right crevice, we can take him down. And so that's kind of been the whole background to this amazing story that's sort of come together with this huge team that we've got now, is this sense of optimism in a terrifyingly dangerous future, but that's so exciting to explore. The world of Evera Prime is it's been amazing to see how it's evolved. It started as some kind of cool ideas, and as we've brought in the team, they've really added some amazing concepts to it. But let's go back in time. Evera Prime is as one of several colonies of Earth that was set up by connected gateways. They're on the other side of a vast nebula, and one day that gateway just stops working, and this advanced society stumbles and almost goes to war. The panic, the threat of not getting the supplies from Earth. It's a resource-rich system, but they weren't ready. So they kind of find their way back from that. They create this very advanced society. It was already a base of operations for a big science institute. So they had a lot going for them, and before long they created this vast AI, the Builder, that was going to create this huge network of broadcast power and computing that would let them focus on getting back to Earth, finding out what happened, sending a rescue mission. And so that was all going on, but somehow the AI got corrupted, and it turned against them, and it turned the machines that were building this vast infrastructure against the people. And so they were literally, they fought back as much as they could, but they were faced with the fact that they were losing. And the only way was to destroy everything, all the infrastructure that could support this AI system. So they kind of had to bomb their own world into the Dark Ages. So if you can imagine a once stunningly futuristic world, like, you know, towers that climb 10 miles into the sky, and beautiful cities where buildings would reorientate themselves to reflect the light across beautiful parks. So imagine that world being torn apart by this terrifying war. You know, people that just relied on tech, that they relied on the systems around them, the friendly nanograms to guide them around the town, the mechs that was, you know, moving supplies around, and the systems and everything turned on them. And people had already begun kind of looking to nature, to sort of different ways of doing things. And there was an exodus from the cities. And, you know, what we've got is you've got people who kind of founded new settlements wherever they stopped, you know, some farmland, middle of a forest, you know, or a mountainside, wherever they could find safety during this war. They've created new settlements, and you've got several groups. You've got the archivists, people who survived maybe in a bunker. You know, maybe there's some remnant of a government organization or a military organization. They've got some working power, maybe some running water or a medical facility. You've got the spears, who are they're the remnants of the resistance, the people who said, I'm not leaving my home, I'm going to fight. And they took the fight to the machines. They much like in World War II, we came up with this, the design, the Sten gun that French farmers could make in their own, with their own machinery. The people created this thing called the electro spear, that was this sort of monoblade EMP weapon that could be used to take down a machine. And the spears are the descendants of those people who said, no more, we're going to work together and take down the machines in our home area. And they're this wonderful society that doesn't leave anyone behind. They have terrible disabilities and mutations that have affected them, and their real ethos is everyone is the same. No one gets left behind, and that's mentally and physically. So it doesn't matter what disabilities you have, they will find fixes, prosthetics, any kind of tech they can to make sure that you are a functional member of society and can keep up with them. And so we got this wonderful image of people who just, you know, they refuse to consider anyone as less than them. And then you've got the Everans, who are our kind of general people who live, they're farmers, gatherers, miners, you know, they've got this kind of general main communities around the world. And then the dreamers, who kind of describe as Ewoks on acid. Imagine these are the sort of scientists who kind of checked out in the past. And they, you know, if you take a super scientist who preps for the apocalypse and stick them in the woods and what they would achieve. So these people know how to science without electricity. They know how to make light without electricity. They know how to send messages. They know how to utilize the nature and the environment around them to make life as comfortable as possible. But they're also genius at taking down mechs using traps, you know, made from a bit of string and a few twigs. You know, you can imagine their villages are packed full of rolling logs and pit traps and all kinds of stuff. So these are people who have rejected science and the dangers of the past and want to find a new way to do things. And then we've got all sorts of interesting groups like the Rivers, who are, let's call it kind of like a canal people. They connect the fabric of Everan society. They are people who live on boats. They trade up and down the rivers, and they see the river as, you know, they call it a she. You know, the river is the river, and the water is so important to them, and the boat's sacred. So don't touch my boat. And but they're these wonderful people that, you know, bring supplies, bring travelers, and bring information. And information is also quite a key vital thing in a world that's kind of growing back together like this. I'm really excited for people to, well, a just drop into this world and find out about this storyline, and the whole Dreams and Machines concept has been crafted like kind of like a novel. We've got a whole story that's evolving in the background, starting with the people just discovering these threats, these, you know, there's more of these raiders, these thralls turning up to raid their settlements. Why are there more of these machines waking up? What's triggering them? And there's a big storyline that is playing out through the campaign books that will be released for the role-playing game. They'll, you know, obviously you've seen some of the audio adventures that are coming through. We've also got a novel that we're working on, which is about this girl called Kari and a machine called Abe. And Kari is where this whole world started, because, you know, I imagine this story of a girl and a robot in a post-apocalypse, and it's kind of, the whole thing is spun out of that. And I think great stories always start with people. And Kari's story is, she's a little girl that's playing in the garden with her toys, and there's a machine there. There's machines everywhere in Dreams and Machines. They're overgrown. If you imagine hundreds and hundreds of thousands of machines building the future, building these massive facilities, and of course the war stopped them dead, and they've all overgrown with ivy and plants and bushes, and so you can't really get away from them. And Kari's home is near this machine, and she's playing in the garden, and one day she looks up and it's looking down at her. It's come alive, and for some reason Abe, or the robot, doesn't kill her. Every robot kills people in Dreams and Machines, and so and obviously that's part of the plot secret. And you know, the people want to take the machine away. They want to kill and destroy Abe, as she calls it, and she starts painting pretty pictures over it and smiley faces. And, you know, her story is really core to the whole Dreams Machines world. She eventually leaves home to protect Abe. They go on a journey together, and we're going to see some of her stories through the books. And, you know, we're going to learn about the world through her eyes, and that affects all of the design of Dreams and Machines. Everything you're going to see has this delightful childlike approach to it. So the rule book looks like Kari took our rule book and scrawled all over it and highlighted bits and said this was really smelly, and oh, I didn't like this. And she's pressed flowers into it and drawn little stick men drawings, and she's done a kind of like a brass rubbing of a circuit board that she's found. So everything we're doing is, I mean, if you've seen Free RPG Day, we put a colouring book of artwork into that. So we're trying to do it differently, in that this feel-good vibe to the future is coming through in all the design and all the storytelling. That yes, it is a really dangerous world, but if you see it through Kari's eyes, through this kind of young kid's eyes, who's like, you know, she's excited about traveling the world with her new friend. And we want you to find new friends in Dreams and Machines and go on these fantastic feel-good journeys with them and fight massive monsters and huge creatures and discover the secrets of the past.
Yeah, I'm Natalie Whipple. I am an author of several young adult books, and then I also have been DMing a good 15 years. So gaming is my hobby passion. Authoring is the gig. I worked on the Everans for Dreams and Machines. I loved diving into their culture and kind of exploring what they are about. They are probably the biggest population, the largest communities or towns are kind of where Everans hang out. They are a little agnostic, I guess you could say, to technology. They use technology when they need it, and they love to kind of MacGyver stuff together. They like to innovate with the scraps that they've found and make new things that work for them and their situations from those scraps of technology. They are friendly people, interested in trade and welcoming others to their communities. And that's just like a society I want to be a part of. So it was really fun to explore. My inspiration behind the Everans was kind of, if you had a post-apocalyptic society and you had all these things that were kind of broken and you didn't know how you're going to make those work. How do communities come together? How do they work together peacefully and make a new society out of something that was really falling apart? And it was nice to kind of approach that not in like a conflict-driven way, but in a peaceful, kind of teamwork-driven way. I really liked that aspect of the Everans that I was given kind of in the prompts and stuff. I really liked that they were just welcoming people. Like that was kind of like my driving interest in them, welcoming of all types, willing to work with anybody who was going to be peaceful and get along with them. So that was kind of my driving, what would they do kind of mentality.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dave Seamark. I'm a freelance game designer and writer. You may have come across me before with some Free League productions of Alien in particular, but also Verse and Twilight 2000. I've been delighted to work with Modiphius on this and some other stuff. You might also find me on, I'm the co-host of the Effect podcast, where we talk about role-playing games, particularly focusing on sort of the Swedish scene, so a lot of Free League and Yenring and Helmgast stuff. Yeah, I wrote about the Archivist faction, and this is a faction that has sort of grown from the time of the war. So at the time of the Builder War, there were people resisting, and that resistance was not coordinated, but was encouraged and supported by a group of people who fled to an off-grid location called the Lacio Archive. And people all over the world were listening to their radio messages of support and resistance, and these groups would then come together and build that resistance and fight against the Builder and the mechs. Now, as these groups were slowly sort of drawing down the war finished, the big conflagration. The last attack was done from the archive as the archive was being destroyed itself. And as the last radio message went dead, all these separate groups said, okay, we're all archivists now. And that is kind of where the archivists came from. Now, each of these groups are kind of separate. They come from previous government or official or other groups that banded together at the time of the war. And they have a number of different philosophies within the group. As a whole, the archivists are like, I kind of liken them to the Greek city-states, although they're not states in themselves. They're like siblings, where they argue and they bicker about the best way of going about helping the world. But they all have the same objective, which is to gather more knowledge and help other people build again. But they have different ways of doing it, and there are a number of philosophies. Some of them are philanthropists, where helping others is the key thing that they want to do. Some of them are pragmatists, which is we've got to fight back, and we've got to prepare ourselves to fight the Wakers. Then you get an extreme form of them, the teleologists, who want to fight the Wakers, but with the Wakers' own technology, and use the Builder's technology against the Builder. And then you have epicurists, who believe that insight into knowledge is gained through meditation and drug-induced visions of what's going forward. But they're all like angry siblings. Each of these factions within a faction want the same outcome, but they'll argue to the ends of the earth or to the ends of Evera about how best to go about it. But they all come from the same source. They all have the same objective. And the archivists tend to set themselves up around things that people need. So it might be a water facility that they get back online. It might be a power facility that they get working. It could be anything like that. And then people come and live around the archivists because they have the knowledge and they have the desire to help the others. So communities tend to build up around these archivist locations and towers. And that's where you start to get your nascent communities, your nascent society rebuilding again. Yeah, so I was inspired very early on by a comment that Chris made about the archivists being a bit like the Greek city-states. And being a historian of ancient history myself, it's right in my wheelhouse for that kind of thing. So that really gave me a sense of how these people interact with one another, how they kind of don't interact with one another, how each of the factions within the faction think they know best about how to go about getting their objectives and making the world a better place. So it's definitely that kind of feel, even though obviously they're not states, they're not nation states like the Greek city-states were, but that kind of sort of political and society kind of interaction was what really sort of inspired me around them. And they have very established hierarchies, and there are 4 rank structures, and you are in one of those ranks, and you have to be deferential for those ahead of you, and you have to earn your way up. And it's been great putting that together and seeing them grow as we've been working on the book.
So I am Mari Tokuda, and I am a freelance writer, and I work primarily on tabletop games, and I work primarily on tabletop RPGs, but I also work on some skirmish games and whatever comes my way, and sci-fi, fantasy, contemporary, kids properties. I love it all. The Dreamers faction is a group of people who seem on the surface to be very anti-technology, but that's not actually the case. They use a lot of very high-tech, or they pursue a lot of high-tech research that doesn't include electricity or combustion engines or things like that. So a lot of biology, a lot of chemistry, a lot of physics, but avoiding electricity, combustion engines, and things like that. And they've sort of hidden that part of themselves. And they seem like they're more pastoral, but that's not necessarily the case. Once you start digging in and you breach the surface and gain their trust.
Yeah, the Dreamers in Dreams and Machines are your homesteaders. They kind of saw what was coming. They were worried about technology, and they left before the societies started to break down and the apocalyptic events happened. They started using older tech or no tech at all. They started figuring out how to create a society from that really old and sometimes even ancient processes of building and all that kind of stuff. So they were really interesting to kind of get into that pioneering, homesteading kind of mindset in a post-apocalyptic kind of setting. It was cool.
So the Dreamers have very interesting relationships with the various different factions within Evera. So the Archivists, they have a very opposed relationship because the Archivists are all about using the old technology that the Dreamers have rejected. And but they have very tight relationships with other factions. So the Dreamers have a very strong relationship with the Rivers, and it's a very symbiotic relationship because they need resources, but they also have the skills and the know-how to create really creative ships and boats and engines, and the Rivers really need that a lot of times, and they can do maintenance and repairs, and so they have a very interconnected relationship with them. And the Spears also oftentimes have a good relationship with the Dreamers as well, because the Spears are going out and finding resources that the Dreamers want, and the Dreamers have medical knowledge and various other technologies that the Spears need or want or can use. And so they have very deep relationships with the different factions, and it's very combative with some and very opposing with some, very oppositional with some factions, but it's very tight and interconnected and symbiotic with others. One of the real world inspirations for the Dreamers was Mesa Verde in Colorado. It's a fascinating ancient civilization, and they were cliff dwellers. And so I looked into how they lived on these cliffs and other cliff dwelling ancient civilizations to sort of draw influence from. So I thought that seemed to tie in really well with the vision and sort of what the Dreamers wanted out of and where the direction they wanted to go in.
The Dreamers are kind of like my people. I was really drawn to them and really excited to be assigned to them with Mari. I am kind of like that. I built my own greenhouse last year. I love to garden. I know how to quilt. I can can food. I raise chickens. I'm like that kind of person. So I was really excited to take those things that I know a lot about and put them in a game. Like, it was exciting to be able to build people that I probably would have really identified with, because I have an appreciation of all those older crafts and ways of like preserving things without technology. So yeah, I was like, I would be a dreamer. If I was in this world, that's what I would be. So it was fun.
My name is Logan Bowes. I'm a writer, editor, gamesmith, and a bunch of other things from the Absaliga tribe of Native Americans. And I do a lot of work in the gaming industry and in Native activism spaces at this point. The Spears are a group of survivors, and they are named for their weapon. However, their biggest strength is always the person beside them. They know that strength lies in community, and that only by coming together did they have a chance of surviving this new brutal world they found themselves faced with. They're rugged, they're tough, they're resourceful. In a fight, a spear is the one you want to have at your back, because spears live and die by the mantra, no one gets left behind. I took a lot of inspiration. I usually take a lot of inspiration from my own culture, but beyond that, this time I actually included a lot of specifically old German knightly culture in the Spears, and a lot of their ceremonies, a lot of their pageantry, a lot of their drama, let's call it. I just love medieval heraldry. I love medieval culture. I have since I was very small, and I rolled that all up into these wonderful characters that I got to breathe a little life into.
Hi, my name is Jen Kretschmer. I am a writer, performer. I'm a disability consultant. I produce stuff. I love storytelling in all forms, so sort of wherever I can get different types of storytelling in, that's what I do. The rivers are the lifeblood of Evera Prime. They are the way that goods get from place to place. It's the way news gets from place to place. They literally carry things like blood cells in a vein. They keep everything moving. They evolved out of folks who knew how to do long haul transit. So it's a really wonderful group that gathers together at times, but often is a bit more solitary. And it's just a fantastic, for me, they're a very joyful family in a lot of ways. We designed them thinking about marine life and the way that different creatures gather in pods and otters gather in rafts and things like that. And so that became part of the design. So the idea of a family unit that kind of disperses and comes back together again was very fundamental in my mind to the way we created the rivers.
So the rivers I helped put together with the wonderful, inestimable Jennifer Kretschmar, who was an absolute joy to work with. And we based a lot of the rivers off of old sailing cultures from all around the world, places that don't get a lot of screen time, a lot of naval Indian culture pre-Britain, a lot of Native American culture from the Southwest, or not the Southwest, the Southeast, in the old swampier parts of Louisiana, things like that. Also a lot of contemporaneous trucker culture, a lot of contemporaneous bayou culture. Just they're these people who live their entire lives on the water, and we wanted to look to people who did that, again, who normally most people don't think about all the time. They're very shrewd traders. They are people who Evera wouldn't have survived without, because they are the ones who figured out how to get to the boats and use the rivers to keep everyone else alive.
As we were writing the rivers, we came upon a few different ideas. We became fascinated with the idea of long-haul truckers and sort of trucker culture, which is absolutely amazing. It's so interesting. And I was really engaged by some NPR interviews about trucker culture and did a bunch of reading, and sort of the mindset you have to get into in order to be isolated and in motion for such a long period of time. So that certainly was a big part of it. And then we looked at naval cultures globally, because so much of Evera is rooted in the influences of different cultures and different groups, and the way that those over time would come together and pieces would merge and shift and transform. So a lot of what we came to, we were really interested in the idea of Polynesian astronavigation, the way that you can use the stars rather than any sort of external tools to navigate your way around. And there was something really beautiful about that and important about that, and that idea of connection. We were interested in everything from gondolas to we went all over. with this, there was some Cajun and Creole influence in the idea of cultures coming together and transforming. So, and then some of Western naval culture in terms of the chain of command, and that would be an essential part of living on boats. That was really interesting to us as well. So all of those pieces came together in really fascinating ways. I also played with ideas. There's something called a notturna, which is from the John Cabot era in Italy, which was called a night disc, which was an early seafaring instrument. So things like that came into the design. All of the names we use as those ranks, which become the names of the rivers themselves, reflected different tools and mechanisms that historically and globally have been used to navigate the waters, whether that's certain types of wildlife and birds, or whether that's the way that light bounces off the water and you can tell the depth of the water. So all of that kind of came in, and some of those ended up being translated through multiple languages, or taking pieces of different languages to hybridize to create new terms, which was really interesting and fun for us too.
Hey, I'm April Hill. I'm the community manager here at Modifius, and today we're going to be taking a look at the starter set for Dreams and Machines. With this play out of the box RPG starter set, you can get running straight out of the gate. This box set includes 3 booklets, a tutorial booklet that teaches you the rules and character creation as you play, an adventure booklet with a fully immersive multi-part adventure for you and your friends to deep dive into the world of Evera Prime, and a rules reference booklet for when the dice need to roll. In addition to these, we have handouts, dice, tokens, maps, and a plethora of cards showcasing the beautiful artwork and information. This set has everything you need to get started in the world of Dreams and Machines. Follow us on social media, tag us in your Modifius games, and join our community on Discord to connect with other players. Also, make sure to check out your friendly local game stores for Modifius-sponsored events and pre-orders.
You know, the first time that I played Dreams and Machines, I loved that the world was so open and encouraged creativity.
The thing that excites me most about this is the story to be told, because there's so much that the player won't know about what's happened.
For me, one of the things that was so exciting about Dreams and Machines, and part of why I wanted to be part of the project, was helping to create an entirely new universe. That was so exciting.
So I'm really looking forward to getting to see a lot more of the culture in depth that's been developed in that time.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how the different factions interact with each other and react to each other as things move forward in this world.
Man, what doesn't excite me? It was such a fun world to be part of and to explore. It was so new. I loved all the nuanced things. I really enjoyed getting to write Carrie and Abe's story and learn more about what they're about. And since they're such big characters, that felt like such an honor.
But I like a little variety. I like being able to go into a scene or a combat situation and do something new. Yeah, because, those are your favorite moments as a gamer, where you get to do that cool thing and you talk about it years later, because you solved the problem in a way that nobody ever has. And I think that both the mechanics and the world really do a good job of encouraging that. So people can, people can come into this game knowing that it's not going to be the same game experience from session to session, but also the same as other post-apocalyptic sci-fi type games that they've played in the past. This one feels different, and I think that's exciting.
A lot of the people in Evera won't understand why the war happened in the first place. It just did. The builder turned bad. No idea why. But the war was won. So the builder is gone, isn't it? Surely. But so there are lots of stories to be told about uncovering what the world used to be like, and searching the ruins, and some of it just deserted ruins, not even ruined, parts of the world that were once this fabulous technological, almost utopia, where the technology was so powerful and so good that the cities would be a mile high, and with forms of architecture that were more like art than buildings, and just reams of technology. But suddenly it's all gone. Much of it's destroyed, much of it is damaged, some of it is just sitting there pristine.
Such a diversity of areas and experiences and types of adventures, whether you're looking for something very naturalistic or you're looking for what feels to me like very ancient, exploring ancient ruins, or visiting the remnants of ancient societies and getting clues about that, or much more sci-fi, high-tech, playing with the imagination of what would you do if you have almost unlimited potential in technology, and having that all in one world, and having it all come together and make sense. That was really exciting. And the narratives of the relationships between the people and the machines and the world, I thought was so beautiful. So immediately that drew me to it. The art blew me away. And just immediately there were ideas and possibilities that were coming up the more I dug into what was happening in the world. So that always was incredibly exciting.
Of course, I love the rivers and the spears, but there's just a lot of places that we kind of scratch the surface of in this that I can't wait to start going deeper, more in depth to, expanding out to places that we haven't directly mentioned, but that are kind of implied, and I want to see what becomes of that.
I'm interested to see how this world evolves in reaction to Kari and Abe, and how they have an effect on everything, because it's completely different now. They change everything.
I love being able to explore that blend of like old tech and new tech. That felt so fresh to me and just exciting. And I love that, like, it's a beautiful world. I mean, if you've seen the art, it just seems so beautiful. Like, it's still so natural in so many places. It still feels untouched in many places, which is exciting, because it's not just all ruined cities. It's not just all kind of a wasteland. It has so much to explore. Like, and as a DM, that excites me, to be able to just have all these regions that are just new and different and interesting, to just let players play in. Like, that's the best part of being a DM. So that's what excites me.
My favorite place in the world, there is a city which is a little way from New Mossgrove, where the players will start, where the story is centered at the beginning, and it's a fabulous city. It's an enormous city. It's a pristine city, barely a scratch on it, but it's dangerous. It's got creatures living in it. It's now got old automated systems which might still try and help, but maybe some of them are corrupted after such a long time. And there are so many mysteries in there, in this what looks absolutely fabulous. It's like an untouched relic, like an archaeologist's dream. And I think there are a lot of stories that we can tell just in that city alone. And that, I think, is where I'm most excited to see players go. Yeah.
I wanted to go adventure. I wanted to go explore. I wanted to run around and, push down walls and open doors and uncover hidden secrets. And that was the second that I was having that instinct. I was like, oh, this is something I really want to, this is a sandbox I want to play in. So that was really, really exciting for me. And I'm very excited that people are going to finally get to see it. Because it's so beautiful and it's so exciting and different from anything else out there.